court in California's 3rd District filed the opinion on July 29th, rejecting plaintiffs' arguments that the county's imposition of that gigantic fee a decade ago violated his constitutional rights and was not proportional to the development impacts of building a modest manufactured home. So I've talked about this one before. The guy has a piece of property. He wants to build a home on it. When he applies for permits, they say, oh, well, due to the increased traffic that your home's going to cause on this road, you've got to pay a $23,000 traffic impact fee. And you go, where's that number come from? The department that makes up numbers? I don't know. So the Fifth Amendment's takings clause bars government agencies from taking private property without just compensation. You might say, but Steve, they didn't take his property. No, but if you tax somebody so much they can't use it, you've taken the property. So the man is a former Los Angeles resident. He relocated to Northern California and eventually became head of an engineering contracting company. And he's been represented by the Pacific Legal Foundation, which won the favorable opinion from the U.S. Supreme Court back in April. So at issue is whether a legislative body, such as the county's elected supervisors, are exempt from takings rules imposed by legal precedent. In its first ruling in the case, the appeals court concluded there was a legislative exemption. But in April, the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously rejected that idea, saying there's no basis for affording property rights less protection in the hands of legislators than administrators. The takings clause applies equally to both, which means that it prohibits legislatures and agencies alike from imposing unconstitutional conditions on land use permits. The High Court vacated the first appellate ruling, remanded it back to the court for further deliberations. Last month, the California court reaffirmed its first decision, finding that the traffic impact fees were constitutional, despite the ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court. So in California, local governments have broad authority under the grant of police power in the state constitution to regulate the development and use of real property within their jurisdiction to promote the public welfare, which includes the power to require landowners to pay a fee to mitigate the public impacts of their proposed development projects as a condition of approval. And that's what the court said this time around. Now, an attorney with Pacific Legal said attorneys with the appeal. A petition for review would then be filed with the state Supreme Court. There's still a lot of life left to this case, he said. The key issue is the county made a decision to place a substantial portion of the cost to mitigate future commercial development on residential development. The cost shifting places an excessive burden on residential builders such as this man, which the U.S. Supreme Court sought to protect against, according to the attorney for the man. He added that traffic impact mitigation fees nationwide average about $3,500. And in California, the average is about $6,000. U.S. Supreme Court decisions have overruled 3 decades of California impact fees, he said. So the county, which is El Dorado County, is an outlier in the area of impact fees, according to the attorney. And the failure of such fees to be tethered to direct impacts of individual developments makes them unconstitutional. And so there is underlying this concept something that kind of makes sense. So there's a road and there's no construction on it at all. It's just a road. And you want to build something on that road. Well, your building and then the use of that building will probably increase the traffic on that road to some degree, right? But roads actually are designed to handle traffic to some degree, aren't they? So the question is, how much more is what you're doing, how much more is that going to add to the stress on that road? Obviously, some things create more of an impact than others. So if I build an 1,800 square foot home, that's one thing. If I build a Walmart, a super center of some sort, that's another thing, right? So it makes sense that you look at what the person's doing and say, okay, and then you be tied to that somehow, or tethered, as they said. And to just randomly yank numbers out of you know where and go, well, you're building that 1,800 square foot home. Yeah, your fees gonna be $23,420. $23,420. Where'd that number come from? I'd love to know where that number came from. And so one thing I'm hoping, and it wasn't in this story, but I'm hoping that in this litigation, as this case works its way through the courts back and forth all these times, that somebody sat down with one of the defendants and under oath deposed them and made them answer questions such as, where did that number come from? How'd you calculate 23,420? Why not 22,000? Why not 25,000? Where does that number come from? And if the average cost in California is $6,000 and you're charging almost 4 times that, why? Why are you charging quadruple the average price in California? I mean, and then of course you can ask them, by the way, why do you believe the Supreme Court rulings don't apply to you? That's That's an important one. But strangely, the fact of the matter is that they've already gotten the state court to agree with them that somehow Supreme Court rulings don't apply to them. That's a problem also. And so some of this stuff baffles non-jurors, but also baffles the jurors. And I mentioned before, I did the stories about how in some areas unpaid property tax can cause them to lose home. When they auction the home off, they sell it and they keep all the money. Not just the money you're owed, but all the money. And the U.S. Supreme Court said that is wrong, is unconstitutional. And so some people who had it happen to them before that ruling said, well, we want our money back. And some of the municipalities, no. They said we can't do it going forward. Well, if it's unconstitutional now, it was also unconstitutional back then. It just hadn't had a ruling yet. Guess what? Now we got to relitigate that. And so once in a while, the Supreme Court will answer a question and assume that everyone will go, okay, that's the answer. No. And sadly, oftentimes it's government entities who are in a position to take in money. They hate to not take in that money. I've mentioned before, this is one of my favorite illustrations, is that when there's a revenue source, a revenue stream coming into somebody, often a government entity, imagine that it's a faucet with a spigot on it, and the money is flowing in. They hate to shut that spigot off. They hate to do that. Getting them to do that, probably the hardest thing you could do. You know, they say you can't fight City Hall. You also can't get them to turn that spigot off. That's no. They will fight the bitter end on that. So they're going to keep fighting this one, and it's crazy because it appears that not just the municipality, but one of the courts in California they're in front of has said, oh, that Supreme Court ruling doesn't really apply here. So, what? So, there you go. From Legal News Online, Michael Carroll wrote that. Scott sent it. Thanks a lot. California court shrugs off the Supreme Court. Impact fees are still constitutional until a higher court gets at it again. Questions or comments, put them below. Those talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Leto's Law. Have you ever imagined a world without hypothetical situations?
modern society. We've used this zappy stuff since Benjamin Franklin went kite flying in 1752, and it's not slowing down. Nowadays, we take it for granted, expecting the lights to pop on the moment we flip the switch. But there's no magic here, just hardworking people doing crazy stuff to make it happen, often in far-off lands. Which brings me to today's visit with Quanta Services. Today we're in the New Mexico desert, which happens to be the new home of SunZia, one of the largest renewable energy projects ever. But making thousands of megawatts of power isn't enough. You have to get it all from A to B, where enormous transmission lines like this one come into play. Think of it as an electricity pipeline. But unlike pipelines, everything's far up in the air, well out of reach of little legs like mine. So how do they build and maintain them? With the help of some air power. All right, with the background sorted, let's get to site. We started our visit with a scenic drive into the desert from Albuquerque. We had no address, only some coordinates, which required a bit of route finding.
You know our approximate location?
Not a clue.
Somewhere in New Mexico.
Somewhere in New Mexico. We're doing some route finding.
We're in Courage for Cowardly Dog land.
It is nuts.
You just dropped him off?
And dipped. What? After arriving and meeting the pilot Jay and the crew, they told us to hurry up and get down the transmission line to catch the other helicopter pilot pulling wire. Alright, we are signed in, talked to the crew, the helicopter, another pilot just hopped in and took off, headed down the line. We're going to be pulling the line right now, so we're going to run down there. If you've ever wondered how they string transmission lines, wonder no more. Using a hook dangling below the helicopter, the skilled pilot pulls a smaller temporary line through each tower, connecting everything together. At the end of the pull, the helicopter hands the line off to linemen working from bucket trucks. Once strung, the ground crews take over using enormous line tensioners to pull the permanent transmission line across the towers, removing the temporary line. And just like that, a transmission line is born. As the helicopter finished, we returned to the LZ to get a rundown on some equipment the aerial linemen needed for the hands-on work. Can you explain what all this stuff is?
Alright, so this right here, these are spacers, and they're going to go in those bundles right there where it's multiple subconductors. They keep them from slapping together in the wind.
So you have to go up there and put these on?
Yeah, so depending on whether it's windy or not, we'll either put some carts, some spacer buggies on the wire, we'll land those on with the helicopter, and then you see they'll have them hanging at each structure right there, and they'll have them ready, so we'll start.
Maybe you just scoot yourself on?
Well, it's motorized.
Oh.
It's got like the little rigs on it, and it's got some hydraulics that reach up and grab the lower subconductor, kind of put it in the right position so you can put it 8 spacing.
And then you just bolt it on.
Yeah.
That's that.
Yeah. These clamps will just grab it. You'll seat them properly, tighten it up, and that thing torques off at the right torque speed.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
and then these right here, these are dampers. A lot of people call them dampeners, but they're dampers. They dampen, and as the oscillation or whatever, the wind, it shakes the wire, it comes up to the structure, it likes to rattle things loose. These are supposed to mitigate that. They kind of spring, and that plate helps bounce and send them back.
So these go close to the structure?
Yeah, so these will come about 87 inches from the shoe for the bottom subs. For the triple bundle, and then I think they're anywhere from 47 to, well, depending on how many you have on each wire. Some spans are a little bit longer and stuff, so they'll have multiple up there. And these are the same concept. So it used to be just statics OHSW on the top to protect from lightning strikes, and now we put OPGW, which will allow substation to substation to communicate. It's fiber optics, so they can know, like they can pinpoint.
So it's still
different things.
two things. It still acts as a shield wire for lightning, but inside of that is glass.
Okay.
Like 196 pair. And then, like Jacob's saying, it allows the utility to do instant switching.
Okay.
Back in 2021, we had to drill holes and run wires just to install LED strips. Total.
And you bring it all up in bags like this.
Yep. Nose bag, the grunt bags are the small ones, depending on where you're at in the country. And then broad bags.
Wow. Yeah, I'm still not totally grasping the line.
So we'll show you on that. These hooks will land on top. We pick them up, carry them out, and then we'll have them rig down where we need them at, depending on what voltage we're working. We hang our material down where we're working at, install it. We have rigging that we carry up with us.
So I guess it'll make more sense once we see you on the.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you hang that from.
We hang it and work from it.
Okay.
So it'll be vertical.
Yeah.
This style right here, actually, I mean, these are used to dead end to ones that have to be vertical.
So this is your work platform while you're up there.
Pretty much, yeah. Vertical. This is our bucket truck. This is our crane master. Or if we're not standing on the side of the bird, we're typically working from one of these.
As you can see, this is not your ordinary equipment. Everything here is carefully engineered and thought out to keep the linemen safe while working around the high voltages the lines produce. For those wondering how much power runs through these lines, this line is 525 kilovolts of direct current. To put that into perspective for myself and others who think electricity is witchcraft, that's about the same amount of energy as a lightning bolt through each power line. While this transmission line isn't energized yet, Quanta often performs aerial work on other lines across America, and it's a bit more shocking. Oh, you got Topo Chico?
Yeah, you want Topo Chico?
You guys are high class. Yeah, they're supposed to pay good. Yeah. First time I've had a Topo Chico on a job. Yeah. So after some waiting, the helicopter returned and it was time to get to work. jumping from tower to tower in a flash. We did our best to keep up in the rental truck. There are 4 aerial linemen all working on these towers, each one. They're using the little bird there to hop between each one of them. The little bird is picking up 2 of them at a time with that rope, putting them onto the tower. They tie onto the tower, they start working. They also have these 2 ladders that they work from with their tools, everything hanging from. They're able to get up and down the tower using that ladder. That is their work platform. So the helicopter is moving between the towers, moving the 4 linemen 2 at a time, and moving the 2 ladders 1 at a time. And we are bouncing around here in the middle of the desert like a bunch of dummies trying to chase them.
I got bags and blocks coming in, and then I'll take the material back out of the way.
Box material. I didn't see which bag those nuts came out of, so I just threw them in one of them.
Okay, somebody's gonna end up with some extra nuts. Our lucky day.
I'll check before I grab them.
Tough.
Could use some.
That's what I was thinking.
You can just ask for them to put an extra tongue in there. I'll have to come back and get this one. I accidentally yanked it out.
An extra tongue? You want one coming back out to you?
If you don't mind, we have extra out there, so I can just come back at the end of the day and grab that.
Temple.
From Sandhill Promise. The shooter who murdered my son at Sandhill Elementary.
After a solid morning's work, it was time for a break. While everything was slow, we asked Jay to give us a rundown of the backbone of the operation. Yeah, if you could just walk us around. I mean, it's 2-passenger, but you almost never have a second person in it.
Yeah, generally we're 2 people. We'll normally do a lineman or something like that up in the front if we're just going for a project overview. If we need to put a bio on board to go check for nests, any of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But yes, definitely somebody usually related to the project.
Okay.
Every once in a while, throw a mechanic on board for track and balance or any of our maintenance needs. But it is a 5-seater technically. You can also stick somebody in the center, and then you can put the 2 rear buckets in. But we always run it 2, so it's light, meant for lifting. And then we do, obviously custom modifications to it. That it has a wire strike kit for working in near the wire.
Yeah.
We also have the sideboard that just keeps the side of the aircraft from getting damaged when the linemen are leaning back against it with all their belts on.
Oh, I see.
Right, and then we have the ring. The ring has 2 attachments. It can be used to side pull, or it can be used for skid work. The guys put their both of their safeties through that so that they don't, if one failed, they wouldn't fall to the ground from the aircraft. We got kind of a handle here. The bond is in the back for us equalizing the potential between the power line and the aircraft. For us in this instance, it's de-energized work, but also for energized work.
Okay.
And then they take the paint off the skid here. That's where the bond goes, so it's metal contact, so everything would go through the frame of the bird itself. And then they do some other kind of custom mods. We put, they found that we get dents in the back, so they put diamond plate here in the back, and then they rhino line the floor, keep stuff from sliding around.
Sure.
And then they're calmed up. The guys are calmed up in the back with us, so that we can talk to them positively when they're on the wire, because they're obviously facing away from us. They can't really see the head signals that we would normally give, so we're talking to them.
And there's no door on it.
There's obviously no door, right. When the weather starts to warm up, we go without the door. When the weather's cooler, I think the last time you were out, you saw that we had a bubble door on it. It's kind of a logging bubble, just enough room to stick your head in. Because what ends up happening is when we stick our heads in here, we're looking straight down after this down tube, just right in this area.
Okay.
And and this is like this skid cutout. This is one of Winco's modifications to the aircraft. It normally would be that size in the back, so quite a bit of profile they've cut out of it that we found gives us a little bit more room to be able to see the work that we're doing.
Okay. And when they're working off the skid, they can put materials.
They can, yep. That's why we got the bungees in the back. So like the spiral dampers went underneath that,
Okay.
and then they can pull the material out horizontal to work off the skid. We don't put a lot of we used to put blocks and stuff like that in the back, but it just beats it up too much.
Yeah.
But smaller items that you'll have some weight to them. We just got our first set of platforms, so the platform actually sits just above the skids, and the guys would actually sit out on the edge and do wire work down there, which gives us a little bit more room with the blades and gives us a little bit more standoff from the wire, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, because the blades when they're doing skid work are pretty close.
They're close. They're pretty close from the eye. Yeah. At Winco we have to maintain 5-foot rotor clearance, main and tail rotor.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to keep the guys kind of like right in this area, so you still get your 5 feet out at the tips.
Okay.
But yeah, the platform does give us some more room. But we like to have everything right. If it's too windy for the skid, maybe we'll put the platform on. If it's too windy for the platform, we'll go to the long line. It's just that's the cool thing about McDonnell Douglas helicopters and all the things that all the things people have invented for them. It's just this is like the Swiss Army knife of powerline helicopters. Sure, now you can just put so many different attachments on it.
And then from the bottom, you have those two. Those are the 2 points.
You're right. Those are the forward hook is the primary hook, and that's the one that we mainly use for external cargo. That's the one the aircraft was certified with originally, and then the FAA changed the requirement to include the secondary hook, so that there's two different forms of release, because the load always needs to be jettisonable, but the requirement for us to HEC, human external cargo, is you have to have the 2 hooks, primary and secondary, and then 2 independent releases up on the controls. So we have 1 manual set of releases and 1 electric set of releases, just in case the electrics don't work. The electrics would be primary.
Adventure awaits in America's national parks. This summer, the National Park Foundation and
then if they didn't work, we would use the manuals as backup.
How much can it lift?
3,550 pounds max gross weight. Out here with the HEC kit, we can't go more than 800 pounds. That we're limited by the secondary hook to 800 pounds, which is about what it's doing up here at altitude. Is about 800 pounds without limiting going into the yellows or anything like that.
Yeah. What's the elevation here?
5,000.
Okay, 5,000.
Yeah, I think the watch is telling me we're at 5,000. This thing's a beast. I mean, it's the biggest motor, right? This is the MD530F, and it's got the C30 engine in it, so it has the biggest motor in it. It's got, the blades are a foot longer than the D model, the round nose. It's got the tail rotor extension, so you get a little bit more authority back there.
Yeah.
It's just they're nice machines. They're really nice machines.
It's a good word, authority. What determines how long of a line you use?
Nothing really. We always have to maintain our 5-foot of rotor clearance. For me, if I have a chance to shorten a line, I will, just because you can obviously see better the closer it is.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing kind of mid-span work, or anything where it's just guys to the wire. It's a lot easier to see what they're actually physically doing with their hands, and you're able to maintain that height a little bit better.
So you're watching them the entire time?
The entire time. Yeah, the entire time. I mean, obviously I have to glance in and check the engine instruments and things like that, but we time our fuel, we do all that stuff, so the primary focus becomes more looking at the men as they're working, for sure.
Which is pretty unique for aircraft in general.
It is. Yeah, it is unique, and it was funny because I had thousands of hours before I put a long line on, and I thought, no problem, this is going to be like the easiest thing to do, to put this long line underneath the helicopter and do this. It was not the case.
Yeah.
It was not the case. It was a learning process to learn how to use the long line.
And they said it's a steel cable?
No. This is HDPE, I believe, is the kind of. It's just a synthetic rope.
Okay, synthetic.
It's a synthetic rope, but it's fully jacketed.
Like Kevlar?
No, it's just a
like
gnarly synthetic. Yeah, I don't know all the specifics on the rope itself. Like it's a liquid, it's a polymer though. I know that.
So it has a little bit
of give, yeah, but not much. And then these are just for cargo underneath. The guys hook in. One hook goes in from their waist into the master ring, and then their secondary goes up here into the rope eye. The weight bag is merely for us when we're moving without anybody on it, so that it doesn't blow up into the tail rotor, and then also for us to aim. It's helpful. It's helpful with some weight on there, and then we've got the primary and secondary Y lanyards labeled, so you can't mistake it. Green is always life, and then orange is secondary, so the green is always the lifeline.
Okay. After a walk around and safety checks, it was time for the day's second task: installing supports onto the wires where they meet the tower to give them extra strength and prevent them from damage. First off, thank you to our new sponsor, Ariat. Check out all of their wares linked in the description of this video. And a huge thank you to Quanta Services and Winco for having us out. This crew was absolutely fantastic. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as we did. We'll see you on the next one. Stay dirty. All right, the Winco boys are at work up on the tower now. I'm not gonna say that. Before we get to the work on the towers,
all right,
Nate, the burning question from viewers is Ford's 10-speed better than General Motors' 10-speed, at least in the valve body? Nate's here from Next Gen. He's the engineer, head guy at Next Gen. By the way, everybody should throw Nate some love in the comments because we're recording this on a Sunday afternoon and he could be fishing instead of educating us on transmissions. Nate, where do you want to start? Nate sent a bunch of images. This is a smattering of images of valve bodies and valves that we're going to go through that Nate sent over. Where do you want to start with Ford versus GM? Do you want to talk about just kind of high level, whether or not you think they're better in any way?
Well, we can start with high level and then maybe get into some of the pictures. So I want everybody who hears what I have to say to be the most informed people in the automotive industry. That's important to me. And it's important that that happens for free. So I'm going to do that today and educate on the Ford 10-speed, all of the billet steel valves and all that good stuff, pulse delete, all that. Everything you see in the aftermarket with names like that, I invented all of that. So I know more about the Ford 10-speed than anybody I've met at Ford. And if somebody feels differently, they should come debate me about it.
So is this the original issue that occurred up until like 2023 with the Fords?
So this is the outer drive shell or F shell. It's actually not the CDF drum, but I'll go into detail. So the main issue with the CDF drum is an assembly that holds 3 of the 6 clutch packs inside the transmission. And it was having a problem where the bushing inside was getting pushed out of place. And the reason this was a uniquely significant problem is because this bushing has holes in it that the oil travels through to turn those clutches on and off. And those holes in the bushing would now no longer line up with the holes in the drum when the bushing would travel. And the result would be that the computer is now trying to adjust clutch activation timing and adaptive learning around improper oil flow to quite literally half the clutches in the transmission. And so Ford came out with an updated drum that has a little lip cast into the drum so that the bushing has something stopping it to prevent that from happening. Now, before that existed, a couple of people had figured out solutions. What we were doing is we were taking a lathe and a square cutting tool, and we were cutting a little square, 2mm square, a certain distance into the shell, or excuse me, the drum. And we would put a snap ring in there, which achieved the same outcome. But the Ford updated drum is so cheaply for sale. It's about $100 wholesale price. So there was no need to continue manufacturing our own because Ford was selling an updated one that achieved the same outcome. What you're seeing here is called the outer drive shell, and it's one of the biggest problems in all of the Ford and GM 10 speeds, all of them. What you're seeing here is one that physically snapped. And I forget the backstory on this one. I think this was an F-150 Coyote that had like 1,500 horsepower or something, and it just clean snapped it. This is an extremely uncommon type of failure. The drum usually gets worn out, not by physically snapping. That's a crazy performance thing more than anything. The way that this drum usually fails is you get downshift clunks and weird shift behavior because of valve body issues that cause the teeth inside this drum to get damaged. And so this is the reason that I tell people that the number one thing you can do to keep your transmission on the road is a complete and comprehensive upgrade to the valve body, because nearly Unfortunately, everybody who experiences that issue is experiencing a valve body problem that's causing the clutches to turn on at inappropriate times, or to not shift correctly, or to time incorrectly, and it causes these teeth to get damaged, and the clutches can get stuck in these teeth, and it results in significant shift complaints. And the real issue is that once this starts to happen, doing a valve body upgrade can't save you anymore. So it's very important that people perform preventative maintenance on these transmissions, especially when you're talking about transmissions that are $8,000 to $10,000 just for the gearbox from the dealership retail price.
Okay, so this is uncommon. We'll move on to, I mean, that's probably related to the 15 horsepower thing. Most likely, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so nearly all of them fail, just not like that. Okay. So that was what I was trying to communicate. This is a crazy common problem, but instead of snapping, usually what happens is the teeth inside get damaged. That's what I was explaining. Okay. And that is almost always caused by hard shifts, rough downshifts, things associated. Valve body failure. What people are seeing here is a part that's usually damaged downstream from ignoring a valve body problem.
Okay. Explain, I guess, separator plates have been a big topic of yours. Explain what we're looking at here, I guess.
Sure. So a lot of people say, how's the 10R80 and 10L80 different? Well, you can see the separator plates on the top left and top right of this image. They're pretty much identical. In fact, I think you could probably swap them and it would work as long as you had the right valve body. But don't quote me on that. I've never tested that. They're sharing a lot of mutual intellectual property here. Now, on the bottom left, you see ours. It's all shiny and zinc coated. That's why it looks that way. But what you can't see in the picture is they're about 3 times as thick. And we also eliminate any circuit that doesn't need to be there. And this causes a lot of bore wear in the factory separator plates when they try to pulse valves or cycle oil through valves that aren't needed. So for example, we deleted the line pressure control piston. We designed a separator plate where oil can't go into that portion of the valve body. And now that piston, which is an extreme failure point, it can't wear out. It's deleted. We're the only people on the market that have designed a permanent solution to that piston, and it's by removing it from the valve body. It's no different than removing an EGR cooler from a diesel truck. If you keep having to replace EGRs, why not just delete it?
I have a question about the black, black kind of whatever it is on top, that paper stuff on top of the GM side, the 10L80. Is that ever so slightly worse than Ford's? Or, because I see in the Facebook groups, I've seen technicians coming back and saying that that's a huge problem and it just peels and
yes.
Breaks.
Well, Ford uses the same garbage. Now, the 10R100 and 10R140 use what is more similar to who they're copying, which is CF. They use a silica bonding, a bead is what you call it, on the separator plate. And I think there's a picture of that in the gallery as well. Now, the issue with the paper is the paper comes off. It rips off and then it goes everywhere. And that can be another big problem because especially where check balls sit, check balls are usually under a lot of concentrated pressure because of their shape and obviously it's a transmission. They can also rip paper off of these things as they try to travel back and forth. It's very important that these separator plates don't use paper. It's a reliability concern. And that's the reason that every separator plate I've ever invented was designed to work without paper gaskets and seal better than paper gaskets.
So is this is the 10L1000? What's the difference between this one and the...
Barely anything.
Okay.
Barely anything. That was the reason I included it. Now, it's slightly larger in terms of footprint, but it's otherwise almost identical. It's the same sort of stuff. They moved some of the holes to different places, but it's all of the same stuff. The only major difference is the Allison uses the feed limit valve system, which is garbage. And Ford uses, by contrast, a latch valve system, which is also garbage.
Okay. Yeah, on the Ford side. So these are OEM Ford ship valves?
There's more in you. More distance, more accuracy, more consistency. PXG Black Ops drivers are custom fitted for your swing. To play your best, play the best. PXG Black Ops driver.
Yes, correct.
Do the GMs have those little rings in them? Or am I not remembering? Okay.
Yeah, they do. So the General Motors one, the design is exactly the same. The only difference is some of the dimensions for some of the lands. They're slightly wider at the end and stuff like that, but they're the same valves and they're used the same way. The other thing is the Allison does not use any of the 5-land valves. They're all 4-land valves. The 10L80 stopped using the 5-land valves after 2019, where they transitioned to the Generation 2 10L80 valve body. But the design is the same. These things warp, the anodization comes off. You have oil pressure that then exits the circuit. This can cause a condition where people get downshift clunks or a flare and then bang when they're on upshifts under load. That's why I designed steel ones that are larger down the center. This is something we're applying for patent on here shortly. We have precedence in use, so we're going to be protecting this IP right here. We made the centerpieces wider so that they wouldn't be able to deflect over time. And so that was an important upgrade for these things. We had tested them with seals on them, and although it worked pretty well, the concern is that some people are modifying their vehicles, and when you modify the software and you alter pressure, it alters how much force can actually turn these off. And so there were some limitations in tuning that we would discover on heavily modified vehicles or vehicles that had complicated TCM tunes. And we wanted to make sure this product worked for everybody. And so we designed them without seals because the seals really weren't the problem here. It wasn't the bore that wears down, it's the valve that wears down in this portion of the valve body. And that's why you see a lot of these valves that come out with the anodization physically ripped off the valve due to abrasive force. And that's why billet steel valves are so important in this part of the valve body. I'm the only person who has invented these. And like I said, this is our proprietary product. I want everyone to take note of something that has nothing to do with us. The transmission industry has a history of lying to people all the time. And one thing that people lie about, if not the biggest thing, is saying that something is proprietary or a trade secret because they don't want to show you what they're doing internally. Usually this is because they're not doing anything internally. They're just lying to you on false advertising. And one of my biggest pieces of advice to people is, and do this to us too, don't let anybody lie to you. Do this to us. We'll pass the test because we're being honest. Make sure they send you pictures of what they're actually upgrading, and also ask for the old parts back. You're entitled to both of those things. Well, the most common line of defense people use is, oh, well, that's proprietary. It's a trade secret. I know all of these people personally. I know every almost every transmission executive personally. And I don't talk to them. I'm not on good talking terms with these people because they're liars, and you guys know who you are. There's nothing proprietary about your product. If there was, you'd be showing people like we do. You should stop lying to consumers. You're every bit as bad as Ford and GM.
Is this, going back to the check ball thing, is this a blown hole from a ball?
No. So this is, so this looks like a 10R80 or 10L80 TCC dampener piston. And so what this is it's designed to cushion the application of the converter clutch. So there's another clutch inside the torque converter itself. And this piston right here is designed to slow down application of that clutch so that people can't really detect it. The issue is that it's one of the first things that wears out, and the vehicle runs better without it. You don't need dampening on the way to this converter clutch. I don't think that's necessary at all, because if you delete the piston, you can't even tell. It's not necessary. It's just something that triggers converter shutter to take place. A lot of people who are experiencing a shuddering sensation under certain conditions with these 10-speed Ford and GM vehicles, they actually have a leak at this portion of the valve body. We have a delete kit for this that's included with our valve body kit that I designed. We are the only people with a permanent solution to the converter shutter issue, and part of that solution is permanently eliminating that orifice from the valve body.
Okay. When you're talking about the valves, so are the OEM valves steel? They're just like
no.
How do you? Aluminum. So I was looking at this, and for those of you that don't know, I'm assuming that the engineers that design these valve bodies, all these passages, I'm assuming that like every passage, the width, the curves it takes, everything is designed to have a specific hydraulic pressure, and the distance has to be very perfectly engineered, right? And then the weight of the valves must affect that. How the heck did you design your valves to compensate? Like, can they be slightly heavier and still work, or how does that work from the engineering perspective of the new valves?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. It's a common question. So keep in mind, I've designed things with worm tracks myself, like for example, the 8L90 pulse delete kit with that billet plate. I'm used to designing things like this, so I know how much I can get away with because I've done this on God knows how many transmissions at this point over the past decade. I know exactly, I invent these things from scratch, including the parts with the worm tracks. I know how much you can alter things before something bad happens. Part of what I do is I understand how the software works, so I know what I can do without the software getting upset about it. And that's something that the transmission industry has lost in recent years. All of the people that do what I do and design parts are, for the most part, older. In fact, they're almost exclusively older. Nearly all of them have retired. Some have even passed away. There are very few people in the United States doing what I do anymore, almost none. The remainder of people designing transmission parts are in India. Nearly everything you see in the automotive industry for transmissions comes from India and China. In fact, most people who are saying made in America, it's not made in America, it's made in India or China, but it undergoes some sort of final process here, like lasering their name on it, or repackaging it, or adding product to it, pamphlet or something. And then they can legally say that it's made in the United States. Nearly everything in the transmission industry is made in India or China. There's almost nothing made in the United States. People that are telling you that things are made in the USA, 99% of the time are lying. Not 100%, but 99%.
Yeah, I see that it's a big problem in the solar industry, everything else. It's like always the same thing. They're getting all this stuff manufactured somewhere else and then assembling it in the US, and it's very, very uncommon to see anything designed and made here.
Just so people know.
Whoever invented this deserves a raise. Are you still putting furniture together with one of those Allen wrenches? Turning and turning, wasting time and wrecking your wrist? Toss that junk out and check this out. This is a 24-in-1 ratcheting screwdriver, the kind German engineers swear by. It's got 24 built-in bits, so it basically replaces 24 tools in one. The best part, it comes apart into different sections, so you can use it in all kinds of ways. Want it compact? Make it short. Need more reach? Extend it. More torque? Just extend one end. More leverage? Way easier. The adjustability alone puts this thing on another level.